Hello everyone, this is Ziad. In this video, I'll walk you through the Vicon system setup. The goal of this video is to set up all of the hardware and sensors and devices that are necessary when you go and you collect your data. So this is applicable for labs and projects in the Biomechanics course. The agenda for today is to go through the project data collection directory setup. This is an area where students often get confused with, so I'll spend some time there. Then I'll show you how to turn on the Vicon motion capture system and how to pair it with the Vicon Nexus software. Then I'll go through adding devices. So I'll show you how to add a force plate, EMG sensors, Goniometer, etc. Then I will end with the Vicon motion capture calibration. So please watch this video in its entirety if this is new to you, or if there's a specific element that you have forgotten. You can refer to the description where I have the segments, the timeline of each segment, or you can refer to the timeline and then you will see chapters as well. To set up the directory for your projects or for your data collection session, what you need to do is you have to utilize Vicon's ProEclipse database system. Vicon does not let you create a new folder and put your data there. So if I now show you, right now I am on D, and this is the communications tab, where on the left, this is your systems files. So you have your C drive, your D drive, etc. And then on the right, you have the kind of what is inside. So right now I have D selected, and this is what is inside of the D drive. Okay? So if I have a new project and I want to put my data in it, I cannot go to D and create a new folder. I'll show you what happens. So if I go here and then I right click, new folder, call it tests. Okay, so if I come back here, the test folder shows up indeed on the left side. If I click on it, on the right, I have a blank screen. I don't have any way of creating a session or projects. It does not let me. In order to set it up properly, what you have to do, you have to find this button, which is the ProEclipse menu. It has blue and yellow circles. So press on it. Then at the top, you have Manage Eclipse Databases. Click on that. Then this goes from the oldest to the most recent, so scroll to the very bottom. And what you want to do is you want to hit on Add New. This will show you your system and folder, all of your folders and drives. So I want to go to D, and then for me, I want to put it right in D. For you, it might be different. You might want to put it in your documents directory, or maybe your TA is instructing you to put it elsewhere. So in data D drive, I'll click on make new folder, and then I'll call this tutorial. Okay, I'll hit OK, and then I'll close. And now you'll notice that this tutorial folder is actually a special folder which has the ProEclipse symbol, which is the same symbol as this one right here. If I click here, again, this is still empty because we don't have any files yet. But here, what is different is we have this button right here. This is showing up, which is called Create a New Patient Classification. So if you click on this, typically I like to put the section number here. So if I'm in section 1, I write section 1, hit enter. Then I can double click here, and then I'll have a new button, which is called Create New Patients or Subject. So maybe you have more than one subject, so you can create more than one subject here, but right now I'll make one called Subject 1. I'll hit enter. Then you can double click, and this is the last layer. This is the session. So this button is called Create a New Session. If you click on it, this is maybe the first day of data collection, so this is my session 1 or day 1. So I click enter. Maybe you collect data tomorrow. So you can, tomorrow, you can come back and then create a new session called session 2. And the idea behind this is that you have a folder per session and a folder per subject. That way your data is organized all the time, so your static trials for each session are together, and you will calibrate each session independently, so it makes everything so much more streamlined and cleaner. And you can always navigate from the left, so if I want to go back to this directory, section 1, I'll be back here, and then I can create a new subject. I can call the subject 2, and so on and so forth. So in order for you to start collecting your data, you have to be in a session directory, so you have to be in a gray folder. And when you are in a gray folder and you go live, this button, which is called the capture window, will come up, will be activated, and here you can give your trial a name, a description, and then you can set up things like auto capture, and then you can hit on start, and then your data trial will show up in this window. So this was a quick brief tutorial on how to navigate the ProEclipse menu and directory system. Before we turn on the Vicon motion capture system, I will press on go live, and this will show a live preview of the camera status. So red color means that the camera is off and there's no communication between the cameras and the software. In order to turn the Vicon system on, locate the 2 black boxes in the corner of the lab. First, turn on the bottom box by pressing on the power button at the back. Then turn on the top box by pressing on the power button at the front. You will see that there will be red rings illuminating around the cameras, and sometimes they would flicker. This just means that the cameras are pairing and synchronizing with the software. In the Vicon preview, you will notice that the cameras would turn from being red to being green. Green means that there is communication between the cameras and the software, which is a good sign. If some of the cameras are stuck at red, which is what I have right now, what you can do, you have 2 options. You can either exit the software and open it up again, and this should reboot the system. Or you can click at one of the cameras and then find the reboot button at the bottom, click on it, and this would reboot the cameras. And then if you give it a minute or so, then the cameras should turn, on the left they will turn gray, then they will turn green. So number 1, turn from red to green. I can do the same thing for number 3, and then the same for 6 and 7. To turn on the force plate, locate the force plate control unit. Then at the back, there's a power button, press it. And then at the top, you will see 2 LEDs, 1 in each group. Group 1 is at 2.5 kilonewtons. And group 2, currently it's at 5 kilonewtons, but we want to switch that to 2.5 so that our group 2 matches our group 1. Then after that, press on the operate button. The green light should come up, and that means that there's communication between the force plate and between Vicon Nexus. Now on Vicon Nexus, on the left, on the devices, you should see the force plate. It will either be gray or green. In my case, it's green. It turns right up. But you might have a green symbol here, a gray symbol here, sorry. So in that case, The best way to fix this is to exit the software and then open it up again. And then you should, as soon as you go live, you should see this green and active. And I always advise students to make sure that you are getting live data from each of the devices that you've added. So in this case, since we have added the force plate and it's on, I want you to go to the graph menu here. So change it from 3D perspective to graph. Then here, ask your group partner or anyone in the lab to step on it to observe if there's any change. So right now, you can see how I've just stepped on the force plate, and then you will see that there's live data coming through. So that is a good sign. And then last but not least, before every session, make sure you zero level the force plate. So go to the force plate, right click, and press on zero level. And this will just reset the force plate such that in the event that it lost calibration or it lost where the zero level should be, this is just resetting that level. To add EMG sensors to Vicon, first look for Trigonal Control Utility. This is the interface that we will use to pair the EMG sensors with this computer. Next, locate the Delsys charging station, and you will see, verify that the sensors are in place and that there's lights. Green lights mean that the sensors are fully charged, and red light means that the sensor is still charging. To pair a sensor, first click on the pair button. So I'm gonna pair the first sensor to channel 1. I'll click on the pair button. And then when I see this prompt, I will then grab the first sensor out of the charging station. I'll also grab this magnet, and then I'll swipe the magnets behind the sensor, approximately in the middle, in a vertical line up and down. I'll do this multiple passes, so sometimes it's 3 or 5 or 6 passes, and then I'll start getting some flashing lights, and this means that the sensor has been paired. So you will see a message saying that the sensor has been paired successfully. I'll press on OK, and that is the first sensor paired. I'll pair another sensor for the sake of this tutorial. So again, you click on pair, and then when you see this prompt is your signal to pick your second sensor, and then swipe the magnets behind in an up and down line. Okay, sometimes again it takes a few passes. Now sensor 2 is paired. I'll press on OK. I will show you a common mistake that happens when students pair these sensors. What they'll do is they'll click on pair. So I'll do this for sensor 3. They'll click on pair. Then they will grab the sensor. Then they will wait too long. So if you wait too long, then this light will disappear. And then if it disappears, no matter how many times you swipe the back, it will just not pair. Okay, so if I swipe this, a few times, it's not gonna pair. The sensor went to deep sleep mode. So if this happens to you, if the sensor goes into this state, the light is off, the simple fix is to put the sensor back in its charging station. So it doesn't matter where you put it, in any slot, you put it back in the charging station, and then you will see it will light up again, and again, red means that it is charging. Then you grab it again, and then make sure that you do it fast, so you don't wait too long. Grab the sensor and then swipe the magnet behind again, few passes, and then now sensor 3 has been paired successfully. Now that we have shown you how to pair the new Avanti EMG sensor, it's time to show you how to pair the older generation Delsys EMG sensor. So to do this, the first step is to click on the pair button. So in this case, I will click on the next available pair button, which is channel 7. So I'll click on pair. After I'm prompted with this screen, I will go ahead and then I'll pick my sensor. So here I'll pick the sensor, and this is the sensor. Make sure that when you pick up the sensor, it has a green LED. That means that it's charging and it has enough charge. Okay, now what I do is I long press on this button, which is the pairing button, and then I will get a series of flashing lights, and then I'll release. Okay, notice it's still waiting for pairing because I do have to press again. So I'll press again, and there you go. So sensor 7 has been paired, and then this light should become green eventually. It will flash green, and that means that the sensor is communicating with Vicon Nexus. So this is only the pairing process. We have yet to add these sensors to Vicon Nexus. To do that, go back to the Vicon Nexus interface here, then go to the devices menu, right click, and then go to add digital device, and then here select the add Delsys Trigono system. And this will communicate with the Trigono control utility to get the information from these sensors. So you will see 4 different entities. We don't care about this one. We don't care about 2, 3, or 5. We care about number 4, which is being sampled at 2000 Hertz. And it is the Delsys IM EMG 2.2.0. So click on that. And I always encourage that if you add any device, make sure that you are getting the data that you expect. So what I'll do, I'll change my view from 3D perspective to graph. And right now these are too small. So I only want to see the first 3 sensors. So I'll open up this menu here, and then I'll click on sensor 1, I'll hit control, I'll click on sensor 2 and sensor 3. And now all of them are showing up. I'll press on rescale, this rescale, and then to demo that we are getting data, I will put it on my hand for now. You should put this on the muscle of interests. So you should put the adhesives. There will be adhesives in the charging station to the right compartments. So grab an adhesive, put it to the back, and then follow the EMG muscle placement procedure. But for the time being, I'm going to put it on my hand just to demonstrate that we're getting data. So the data is noisy. So look at this one right here. The data is noisy. I will rescale, and then I will just squeeze my arm, flex it to see that we're indeed getting peaks and troughs here. So that's for the sensor 1. As for sensor 2, I'll do the same thing. We are getting a signal as well if I make a fist. And then for sensor 3, same story. We are getting live data. Make sure that you keep track of which sensor is which, and you record that channel 1 corresponds to biceps, for example. Sensor 2 corresponds to triceps, because if you mix them up, it will be very difficult to track and trace which sensor is which. And that's it for adding EMG sensors. Now let's talk about the goniometer and how to add it. The goniometer is placed next to the power supply to its right, and it's to the left of the 2 Vicon boxes. Here it is. This is the shape sensor goniometer that you will be using in your labs and potentially in your projects. It has very long cable, and it is meant to be ran across the lab, so you can place it on your subject and then have them move around the lab. This goniometer needs power to work, which is why there's a power supply next to it. So in order to turn it on, press on the blue button, and notice that there's 10 volts of supply that is going in. So please do not change these numbers, keep them as they are. And as soon as you turn on the goniometer, you can see the live data. So you can switch the view from 3D perspective to graph, and then you will see that the data is being plotted. So you can move it up and down, and then it's going to reach its peak, then it's going to come back to around 0, and then if you bend it the other way, it's going to go to the negative voltage, which would translate to a degree eventually. And that is how you can add and operate the goniometer. Now be careful with this goniometer, you do have to calibrate it every now and then. I have a video that goes through the calibration procedure. I'll be putting the link of that video in the description. Last but not least is the Vicon motion capture calibration. So to begin the calibration, the first step is to close the curtains in the lab. So just like as what you see here, the curtains are closed and there are no reflective surfaces. There could be some reflective surfaces, but we want to minimize their presence in the capture space. The next step is masking the cameras. The reason why we mask the cameras is so that if there exists any reflective surfaces, such as the sinks in the back of the lab or the cameras themselves, we would like to mask those pixels in each of the camera's frames to minimize any artifacts or noise when we collect the data. So to do that, we go to the right hand menu under the camera or system preparation. And then here, this is the mask cameras. We click on Start, and we will get a preview from every camera. So this is what every camera is seeing. All 9 cameras, this is what they're seeing. And then what is in blue are the pixels that are being masked. So that these are areas where there is some interference, and the blue is masking that interference so that it does not affect the data we collect. So I typically leave this on for 10 to 15 seconds. Sometimes you would see that these blue pixels are actively coming up or disappearing. So make sure that everything is still and everything is steady before you hit stop.
Calibration started. Wand wave complete. Calibration complete.
And the last step of the calibration process is setting the volume origin. Before we do that though, I would like to go to the 3D perspective to show you the state of the cameras. So right now the cameras are not in the right orientation. They know where they are with respect to each other, and this is due to the previous step, which involved the wands, but they do not know where the floor is or where the lab ground is. You can see that there is the wands here in the middle, and I've placed it in the middle of the lab, just like so. This image shows you the placements of it. I placed it level. There are indicators on the wands that shows you if the wand itself is level, so make sure that it is as level as much as possible. There are some knobs in the bottom, you can adjust them to ensure that everything is level. So by placing the wand in the center of the lab on the floor, We can then click on Set Volume Origin. So the first step, it detected that this is the one, so it put a T on it. And then the next step is setting the origin.
Origin set.
And now the cameras have identified where the origin is, and now everything looks much better than before because the orientation of the cameras makes more sense now. And that is it in terms of the Vicon system setup. Just a quick recap, we've turned on the cameras using the two black boxes in the corner of the lab. We then ensured that they're all green here on the left, which means that there is communication between the hardware and the software. Next, we turned on the force plate through the control unit box. We made sure that the group 1 and group 2, the sampling rate matches. And we ensured that we can get data through it. Next, we've added the EMG sensors using the Trigono control utility. So we paired the sensors and then we added them by right-clicking and adding a digital device and adding the Delsys Trigono sensors. And we then added the goniometer. So the goniometer is already added. All we needed to do was to turn on the power supply and use it. Now be careful because you do need to calibrate it, and the calibration process is in another video. And then we made sure that the space is clear from any reflective surfaces. We closed the curtains. We then masked the cameras, and then we calibrated the cameras using the wands. And then we put the wands on the lab floor to set the volume origin. And here we are. So now we are ready to invite the subject into the space and then to record the static trial and the dynamic trials. And we are ready to do so right here because we've set up the ProEclipse directory system. So all you need to do is you have to press on the capture screen here, and then you can give this a name. So I can call this static trial. I can give it a description, and then I usually set the auto capture settings here to stop after 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So I can leave it as 5 for now, and then I can hit start.
Capture started. Capture ended.
Right now, I obviously don't have any subject in the space, so I didn't capture any data. But for your case, you would capture the data, and then it is saved here. So you can continue doing so for your dynamic trials. The trial name will increment automatically. And that is it. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me directly. Thank you.